Welcome to Divorce and Relationships Decoded, the show that takes the guesswork out of love, loss, and everything in between. Hosted by me, Jennifer Perri, a CDC Certified Divorce and Empowerment Coach, and Dr. Deborah Wilder, a divorce and relationship expert. This is the place where real conversations meet expert advice. So get ready to decode divorce and relationships like never before. Divorce and Relationships Decoded starts now. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. I am one of your hosts, Jennifer Perri. I'm a CDC Certified Divorce Coach, and I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Deborah Wilder, who is a divorce and relationship specialist. Hello, my friend.
Hi, Jennifer. It's always great to see you.
So great to see you too. We always have so much fun doing these shows. We really do. And the feedback has been phenomenal. So thank you to everybody who has been sending in questions, suggesting topics. And one of the things that we actually was suggested we're going to talk about today. And how many of you have heard about the 5 love languages? I know I have, and I didn't really understand what they were for a long time, but they were developed by Gary Chapman. And today we're going to talk about them. So first of all, let's talk about what are the 5 love languages. The first one is words of affirmation, expressing affection through spoken or written words, such as compliments, appreciation, and encouragement. The second one is quality time, giving undivided attention to someone, focusing solely on them without distraction. Third one is receiving gifts, expressing love throughout thoughtful and meaningful presence. Acts of service, showing love by doing helpful things for someone like chores, errands, or other tasks. And the last one is physical touch, expressing affection through physical closeness, such as hugging, holding hands, and other forms of touch. Now, in reading those, you may find a little bit of yourself in each one of them. I know that I do. But for me, my 2 love languages are acts of service and quality time, because I love spending time with my husband. Y'all know that at this point in time. If you know me, you know that we're inseparable. But there's something about just spending time with somebody versus spending quality time where you're not distracted. We can all get distracted with our cell phones, the news, a bunch of busyness, but really quality time. And we make it a point as a couple to spend a lot of quality time with each other. And I think both of our love languages are the same, but an acts of service, I love doing things for my husband, for my children, for other people who are very important to me. That matters a lot to me. So those are my 2 love languages. How about yours, Dr. Wilder?
It's been a while since I've been in a relationship, but I think of it even with my kids and my family. I'm very much a physical touch person. I love hugging, and I very much a physical touch person. And words of affirmation, I enjoy giving gifts more than I enjoy receiving them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you are very giving and generous person and always thinking of other people. So it certainly is a blend, and quality time is important to me as well. I guess a little bit of everything, but definitely physical touch and words of affirmation and quality time are important to me as well. But what's interesting is, and this is something that I run into with folks I work with independently or as a couple, and I'm sure you see it as well, when, 2 people, you said you and Carm are pretty aligned in your love languages, but sometimes people are pretty far apart. What tends to happen is what one person's love language is, that's what they do. That's how they express their love. Maybe thinking other people feel that same way. And sometimes there's a mismatch there. So we have to talk about what does each of these things mean? And some people are, again, like very into physical touch, hugging or snuggling or just physical affection. And other people aren't that way. And how do you bridge that gap? That's something that we work on a lot in couples therapy. But the 5 love languages, I find, is a really great foundation for those discussions. It can be very helpful when people do have those differences. And I think they probably change over time as well as we get older and as we live life and things happen in or out of relationships. And it's just a great foundation for conversations to be had. What are your thoughts?
I agree. And I think that even I look back on previous relationships, and I would say acts of service has probably always been there for me. My mom was very generous with her time, with doing little things. I observed that. And I also could see the reaction of other people when she would do something. And I'm like, that's just it's like a rush of, hey, this person was really touched by what I did. In my relationships, as they've gotten to where they are now, this is the most I have ever wanted to spend time with another human being is with my husband. It wasn't like that previously in other relationships because there wasn't that direct compatibility that Carmen and I have. Do you see where people, let's say one person's is like mine, acts of service and quality time, and another person's is physical touch and receiving gifts? Can that be like just a really weird energy that could create dissension in the relationship? It's almost to your point, this is a great foundation. This is how I receive and show love. What about you? Because you have to figure out a way to appreciate each other and all of that, don't you?
Absolutely. And it's good to know about the other person, because if these things aren't known, then we're constantly guessing. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? What's going on here? I'm showing you love in the way that I know how, or in the way that I feel loved the most. Why aren't you receiving it that way? What's the problem? And when we have items, let's say, of discussion like these 5 love languages, it really helps to bridge that gap. So working with a couple, again, where one person, let's say if one person's main love language is physical touch, physical touch and physical affection, the other person did not grow up being hugged, or physical affection was not part of that person, and they don't need it. I've worked with couples where one person is saying, why do you need that? Why do you need physical? Why do you need to be hugged? Why do I need to hold your hand? And so we have to, sometimes people have to get comfortable, more comfortable with physical touch. That doesn't mean you have to compromise your integrity. This is not about making someone who's so uncomfortable with physical affection now having to hug that other person. That's not that's not the spirit, I think, which has to do with these 5 love languages, but helping people to become comfortable or more comfortable with loving the other person. I think we spoke one of our episodes on love and love as a verb. What does it mean to love someone? If you have a partner who feels loved by physical touch or by any of these words of affirmation, then you can learn to love them better or more in the way that they feel love, but not with compromising your own integrity.
Right.
But if I've worked with folks who really, truly are very non-physical, but the spouse or partner is, some people just have a really hard time getting to a place of even physical comfort. But that could be because of trauma. It could be just because they just are closed off to that, or they just don't need it. But it's an interesting, always productive and enlightening discussion to have when couples can talk about what it is that they need, because that can take care of so much. I think if this, for let's say a couple who's starting out, or any kind of couple, to have these discussions just to find out, what these love languages are. I also do premarital counseling. And so these are the things that we talk about, as well as finances and religion and career, all sorts of things. But what is it that we need to feel loved, and how do we express love? Because sometimes it hurts too if we're trying to express love to somebody and it's rejected or it's not received well. So to me, this is a great, almost like a conversation starter for anybody, even for fun, even among friends or people, just to find out more about ourselves and about the other person. So it's very interesting, and I think very enlightening, and a great conversation, probably one of many conversations to be had between.
I was going to ask you that because I knew you did premarital counseling, and I was wondering if this was one of those things, because one of the best things you've ever said, you've said a lot of really great things, but you said something about at the beginning, we send our representative. And I thought that was so, how true is that? At the very beginning of a relationship, you want to show up the way that you think the other person wants you to appear. You send that personal representative. And you're right. This is a great place to have a conversation with people who are thinking of getting married. And that's one of the things that I do. I do financial counseling with newlyweds, and having the conversations of what happens if down the road a parent gets sick, somebody passes, and you need to move that parent in, or you need to help financially support that parent. And they automatically assume that their partner is going to be totally on board with that. And when I pose that question, majority of the time they're not. Like majority of the time they're like, no, your mom's not going to live with us, or no, your mom's not going to live with us, or certainly I don't get along with your dad. These are things that you want to know at the very beginning. We're not telling you, if you're watching this, that if you have that conversation with your partner and there's like a difference, that we're not saying don't marry them. We're just saying it's important to have conversations. I would imagine if there was a family where they weren't affectionate as a couple or as a family, physical touch is either not going to be in their wheelhouse of things, or they're going to crave it so much that it becomes physical touch becomes their thing. You agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And I think things change over time. Things change over time, and we can bridge a gap. Often, as you just said before, we don't have to have the same thing as a partner does. In order to have a healthy relationship, we need to figure out how to bridge that gap. We need to figure out, how do you meet somewhere where even if there are significant differences, you're still able to love your partner and feel loved by your partner. And there are ways to do that. There's no question. If someone is interested enough, again, and this isn't about compromising your integrity, but it is about, do you love this person enough? Do you care enough about this person to do what you need to do to help this person feel important and like he or she matters? It's absolutely a great conversation to have with these 5 love languages, and to figure out, and they may change over time. They may develop differently over time, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be stagnant at all. And when you talk about even further with couples who are engaged or considering, I've worked with couples who are even just dating. They're not even engaged, but they really are committed to learning and growing as a couple. To talk about all these things, very difficult. We're switching a little bit to another area, but very difficult things to talk about sometimes. But it's important to start as early as you can in a serious relationship, to recognize not only what the other person really needs, but first what it is that you need in a relationship. What is it? Because the sooner you can share that with somebody else and talk about it, the sooner that person can learn to love you in that kind of way, or you can learn to love that other person, rather than just going through all sorts of growing pains, and which is normal anyway. But I've worked with couples, and I'm sure you've seen couples as well, and people, I didn't realize this, I didn't know this, I couldn't put it into words. I was doing these things that make me feel special and loved, but my partner was saying it was unhappy. I think when we can put into words or identify those things that we need, that we want, that we can do to express, it makes all the difference in the world, because there is so much guesswork. And some of these conversations are really hard to have too. So to have something like the 5 love languages, it just helps to have a foundation where we're given kind of the words and given the concepts to think about. It just makes it a whole lot easier when there's some sort of a basis of knowledge that we can draw from.
I think there are parts of me in each one of these. The receiving gifts, that's probably the one that I struggle with the most. I don't know why. I've gotten better, but I can see myself in all of these. And I think because I'm also with the right partner in my life, it's easy to allow myself to be expressive of other things. Carmen and I have been together 10 years. We married 8 years. I haven't made a meal, like a big meal, in all that time. And for the longest time, I thought, my God, this guy thinks I'm going to try to poison him or something. I don't know what's going on. He's not going to cook anything for him. But to him, it was the acts of service. It was cooking for me was his love language. And he learned that from his grandmoms and his mom. And it was just this evolution of Italian love that was given through food. And for him, like he gets so excited when people come to the house and stay, because we have a house full of people. And then he can cook for them all. That is so totally his love language. So if cooking was a love language, my husband's name would be directly next to it. Again, understanding each other and respecting the fact that this is how they love you. And you have to appreciate that and accept it, because you love them in your ways. I have some friends who do not like any public displays of affection at all. And their partners will specifically do stuff because they know they don't like it. Why would somebody do that?
Because that person probably feels hurt and probably feels maybe even resentful. Why is it so difficult for you to touch me? Like, why is it so difficult for you to hold my hand? My guess is much of the time, not necessarily all the time, they could be playful and it just could be silly and
Sure.
poking the bear a little bit, but
Right.
it could be that there's some resentment and some hurt. Why is it so difficult to touch your partner? And some people really do. And it could be because, again, if it may be different in private versus the public displays of affection.
Yes.
I have no problem with public displays of affection, but some people obviously do. And it could be that they're embarrassed or they're uncomfortable expressing physical affection with anybody in public for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure. I think it's different for people. I'm working with a young couple now. They are married, but they've been a little far apart on some of these things, public displays of affection as well. But they're working on bridging the gap. So they're growing closer. They're learning about each other. But part of it is sometimes you need to step out of your comfort zone. If it's that important to the other person, again, that doesn't mean that you have to compromise your integrity, but stepping out of your comfort zone for your partner can be very special sometimes and important sometimes. And again, if you don't do something, you're not going to ever be comfortable with it. But the more that you do something, the more comfortable you might feel with it. Versus if it's avoided, then that's reinforced. The avoidance is reinforced and all of that. There are all sorts of reasons why. But if something is so important or could really make a big difference to a partner, I would encourage folks, just try a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to fling someone over your shoulder and go into or have your arm around them all the time or grab, but just maybe a little touch or just something, just a little. It says, even though I'm a little uncomfortable with this, I want you to know I'm glad to be here with you. I'm proud to be here with you. There are all sorts of reasons for that, but I think it is important to, number one, to know what you need, what we need to feel loved, and then what the other person needs as well. And one of the best ways to tell, like I think a lot of people could guess, even if they didn't necessarily have that conversation, if people thought about it, if I were to ask or you were to ask anybody, so what is it that you think your partner needs in order to feel loved? And basically, probably we can look at what they do. What do they do for their partner? And that's probably what they need. They're probably just doing what they need to have done to them,
Right.
without having this kind of a discussion. But it's always a very interesting discussion. And like you, I know I just celebrated my 60th birthday. I did not want a big party. And you got me a gorgeous bouquet of flowers, a beautiful flower arrangement, which of course, that's what you do. And I'm like, you didn't have to do that. But that was so thoughtful and it's just beautiful. I don't like attention like that, like a party. That's not my thing. So I just wanted my kids and my mom, and then we had a family dinner the next night. But I love making parties for other people, for my children, for my father has passed, but for my mom or family members or friends. I love doing that, but that's not what I want. That's not what I'm comfortable with. It's just very interesting that we can often tell. That's interesting because I just contradicted myself. I really just did. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I just contradicted myself. So if someone knew that I enjoy celebrating other people in bigger ways with a party or something like that, people might think that's what I want too. And that's not really true. So I really just contradicted myself. So listen, to anybody who's listening, just contradicted myself. But that would be an interesting question because people might think otherwise now with certain things.
I know you and know you're a very low key person. Very low key person. Very out of the spotlight kind of person. You know what I mean? Where people like me, that's what we're doing this show together. I'm like, no, come on, get out here because you're so full of knowledge. You help so many people. And I want people to know that you're here. But you're kind of, I think it's because there's so many different things that you could apply these to in different situations, different people. Your love languages will be very different, I feel, in friendships. Now, obviously, there's still acts of service for me and quality time. Like I love spending time with my friends, with you, my husband. I like that you do talk about it with premarital counseling. I think that's very important because I see so many people who get so far down the line, especially on the financial side of life, and they didn't have the conversations.
Yeah.
And they didn't figure out what each one was bringing to the relationship or the marriage. And then when it showed up in the middle of it, and there was resentment and there was anger and there was frustration. So I think having that conversation, and if you love somebody, you don't have to compromise your integrity, or you don't have to change who you are. You can still hold strong in what it is that you bring to the relationship, but you can also be open to what is their strengths or what their love languages are. So I think it's a great thing, and we're going to get ready to wrap up, but I'm going to make sure that we list out what the love languages are and go out and buy Gary Chapman's book. I think he has a workbook that goes along with it too. I know when I had first heard about it, there was a local church that was doing a 5 love languages type of class that you could do or couples could do. So it's just really good to know. It's good to know where you sit between all of it. Again, I find myself in all of these languages. I also find myself straight across the board in money personalities too, because I think there could be a little bit of us in each thing and in each person that we interact with in our life. So thank you for bringing this awesome topic to the table. I know it was one that we wanted to talk about for a while, but do you have anything you would like to wrap us up with, Dr. Wilder?
Just be as open as you can. If you're in a relationship and you really care about that person and you believe that person cares about you, it's okay to step out of your comfort zone. You want to learn about the other person. That leads to intimacy and emotional intimacy and a sense of belonging. When you care and you ask and you're curious about what the other person needs, and you share what your needs are as well. Keep those conversations going, because you will have a deeper, more committed and loving relationship. These sorts of questions and this sort of information can really help bypass a lot of future conflict.
Absolutely.
The more you know about yourself and your partner, the more that you will hopefully avoid future trouble, and it's easier to grow together. So this information, I'm big on information. Knowledge is power. We say that a lot. And this is really great information to know and can lead to some really good and fun discussions as well.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap up for today for another episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. You might want to pick up the phone and schedule some time to talk to Dr. Wilder, you and your partner. Just if you're in a relationship and you're looking to find the best way you can grow together, if you're considering getting married, definitely. We know that she can work in 42 states. We've talked about that before virtually. So wherever you're watching this from, please know that there's resources here for you as well. So thank you, my friend, for joining us again. And again, if you have a question, please send it to questions@drdecoded.com. We'll be back with our question of the week, and join us again next week for another amazing topic. We'll be back again, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. If this conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, healing, growth, and transformation happens one conversation at a time. If you have a question, a story, or a topic you'd love for us to explore, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at questions@drdecoded.com. Your thoughts and experiences are always welcome here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another insightful episode of Divorce and Relationships Decoded. Until then, take care and keep moving forward.